Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtatarasata Shishimari Divine Grace Bhai Chandravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Guru Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki Jai Jai Nithai Gaur Premanande Hari Guru Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, Chapter 6, Creation of the Universal Form, text number 6. Hiranmaya sa purusha Hiranmaya sa purusha Sahasra parivatsaran Sahasra parivatsaran Andagosha uvasapsu Andakosha uvasapsu Sarva sattvopa brimhatha Sarva sattvopa brimhatha Hiranmaya sa purusha Sahasra parivatsaran Andakosha uvasapsu Andakosha uvasapsu Sarva sattvopa brimhatha Hiranmaya sa purusha Sahasra parivatsaran Andakosha vasapsu Sarva sattvopa brimhatha Hiranmaya sa purusha Sahasra parivatsaran Andakosha vasapsu Sarva sattvopa brimhatha Hiranmaya sa purusha Sahasra parivatsaran Andakosha uvasapsu Sarva sattvopa brimhatha. Word for word, Hiranmayaha, the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, who assumes the Virat Rupa. Saha, he, Purusha, incarnation of Godhead. Sahasra, 1,000. Parivatsaran, celestial years. Andakoshe, within the global universe. Uvasa, resided. Apsu, on the water. Sarvasattva, all living entities, lying with him. Upabrumhata, so spread. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Chandravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The gigantic Virat Purusha, known as Hiranmaya, lived for 1,000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. Purport: after the Lord entered each and every universe as the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, half the universe was filled with water. The cosmic manifestation of the planetary systems, outer space, etc., which are visible to us, is only one half of the complete universe. Before the manifestation takes place and after the entrance of Vishnu within the universe, there is a period of 1,000 celestial years. All the living entities injected within the womb of the Mahatattva are divided in all universes with the incarnation of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and all of them lie down with the Lord until Brahma is born. Brahma is the first living being within the universe, and from him all other demigods and living creatures are born. Manu is the original father of mankind, and therefore in Sanskrit mankind is called Manusya. Humanity in different bodily qualities is distributed throughout the various planetary systems. Translation again: the gigantic Virat Purusha, known as Hiranmaya, lived for 1,000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Kum karati vachalam bhangam langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Tirtharanam Paramanam Namadavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we're continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, the creation of the universal form, Canto 2, Chapter 6. So far we've seen how the Lord is responding to the prayers of the demigods in the previous chapter, where they asked the Lord that, okay, so we're now manifested, all the ingredients, the 23 ingredients have been manifested, and Prabhupada says in the purport to text number 2, these 23 ingredients are the total material energy, false ego, sound, touch, form, taste, smell, earth, water, fire, air, sky, eye, ear, nose, tongue, skin, hand, leg, evacuating organ, genital, speech, and mind. Or in short, you can understand it as the 5 sense organs, the 5 objects of the senses, and then you have also the working senses, plus the 3 subtle senses. Actually, Kapila Dev, he actually mentions that as they are the internal senses, or the internal senses, false ego, mind. There's one more, false ego, mind, and he mentions or includes as well ahankara, false ego, mind, intelligence, and contaminated consciousness. So that's 24 according to Kapila Muni in the later half of this canto. But here Prabhupada talks about, or Krishna, Maitreya Muni rather, talks about 23 elements entering with the Lord along with Kali, who represents time, and she starts assembling all of these elements that are in different places. So the Lord arranged in such a way that the demigods could then understand the relationship with each other and work in that way. And that's why the universal form manifests himself. But so far what's happened after the Lord has entered into the... So you have the creation, the Lord glances over creation, invests time in it, invests living entities in it, and then the material energy or pradhan then becomes agitated. And then you have the 3 modes of nature that come into existence and then further become predominating. And then after that you have creation coming into existence and the 23 elements. But then they weren't able to work together because they didn't know how things were working. So then the Lord again had to enter into that. So in other words, what happened was when the Lord was lying on the causal ocean, then from him came the many universes, but they were in their sort of disassembled state. So then the Lord then entered into those eggs. They're known as Andakosha, as mentioned in this verse, within the global universes. And after seeing them not working, he then enters into that globe, into that egg, which is the universe. As we know, there are many universes within this cosmic manifestation, and our universe is the smallest according to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, once the Lord entered, it's mentioned that the 23 principal elements were then set into action by the will of the Supreme. And then the gigantic universal form or Vishwarup body of the Lord came into existence. Now, it's quite interesting that when you read this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, I touched on this previously, and many of the previous speakers have also, that the question comes as to why we read this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. What's the point? The points mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, the end of the 10th canto in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that this enables us to remove the doubt within our mind that Krishna may not be the Supreme. Rather, by reading all of these things from the appropriate authorized source or from the right speaker, bona fide speakers, then we understand more about the glories of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. And once we understand the glories of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, then we can develop more love and affection for them. And we can engage in devotional service, cutting the doubt within our mind that there may be something better or more supreme, or there's something better that I could do with my life. So this section is very important for us to understand. Another main theme that Prabhupada touches on is that without the Supreme Lord, without His touch, nothing happens. Often Prabhupada quotes, I think it's Mahatma Gandhi, he quotes, nothing moves, or not even a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. So this section also teaches us that commonly Prabhupada says life comes from life, and also matter comes from life. So the whole idea of cosmic creation coming from nothing is defeated here, because it's mentioned that the Supreme Lord was there before. Sa aikshata, sa ashajita. That actually the Lord is the one who glanced over material creation, and it is from Him it manifested. So even Sankaracharya mentions Narayana para avyaktat. That before, avyaktat means unmanifest. So before this universe was manifest, or in its unmanifested stage, Narayan existed. And who is this Narayan? That is this Mahavishnu, this Karanadakashaya Vishnu. So this Karanadakashaya Vishnu then becomes Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, entering into the universe. So he expands himself and enters into the universe. And it's mentioned of the cosmic manifestation, Karanadakashaya Vishnu is the super soul of the whole cosmic manifestation. But if we take the area of study to the universes, the individual andakoshas, or the egg-like universe, then in each egg-like universe, the super soul of the universe is Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. His form is the Virat Rupa. And if you go even more, I guess, zoomed in your area of study, then you can understand that within each living entity, every individual entity, the super soul is Kshirdakashaya Vishnu. Now in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the section where, I think it's chapter 22, Madhya Lila, where Sanatana Goswami is being instructed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In that section, Mahaprabhu teaches about the avatars. And he talks about the Purusha avatars there. And there he mentions how this point, that Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is the super soul of the universe, and then you have Kshirdakashaya Vishnu. And he mentions there's something interesting, that the form of the universe is Kshirdakashaya Vishnu is also a expansion of Kshirdakashaya Vishnu. So the super soul, Paramatma, is Kshirdakashaya Vishnu. He exists in the ocean of milk in Swetadvip, within this universe. Just as Prabhupada often explains, all the different dhams of the Lord, the abodes of the Lord on this planet or in this universe, such as Mayapur Dham, Shivandhavan Dham, Jagannath Puri Dham, they are all embassies of the spiritual world, or rather they are the direct manifestation of the pastimes in the spiritual world, and they are manifest here for the Lord to perform His pastimes. So when these dhammas, or these places of Krishna's pastimes, come into the material world, they are not affected by the material world. So in the same way, the Lord has His own planet within this universe called Swetadvip, and that has an ocean of milk. Sweta Dvipa means ocean, or ocean of milk. Dvipa, or planetary system, with an ocean of milk. And it's there the demigods go and worship Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. But the interesting thing there, Prabhupada mentions many times, is that actually they don't see Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. Rather they hear through Brahma. The demigods don't even directly come in contact with the Lord. But Prabhupada emphasizes there that Brahma himself simply heard from Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. And by hearing from Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, because he manifests within the heart, Brahma then relays the message to the demigods, as in the case with the advent of Lord Krishna. And when the demigods hear this, it is no different from actually perceiving the Lord with the eyes. In fact, it is greater to an extent, because it's mentioned that when the demigods went and approached Vishnu at one particular point in time, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, when the Lord manifested himself before them, he was so effulgent that they couldn't see him. But by hearing him, they could understand him more, better. So Prabhupada emphasizes what is there with the eyes. It's not just the eyes. We hear from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. But taking a step back, just before Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, there is the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And this is what we are hearing from. That this Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, known as Hiranmaya. This Hiranmaya, he then manifests the Virat Purusha in the individual universes. What is the Virat Purusha? That's something we'll discuss later in this chapter. But the Virat Purusha, the Virat Rupa, the Vishwa Rupa, Hiranmaya, they're the same thing. They're the manifestation of the universe. The 14 planetary systems, they are assembled in such a way, known as the universal form, for the living entities to be able to meditate on the form of the Lord. Because the living entities, having come into material existence, find it very difficult to understand a personal conception of the absolute truth. So they meditate on the universal form of the Lord, which is the 14 planetary systems assembled in such a way so that they can perceive the person or the persona of the Lord. So that's the Virat Purusha. Now, in this chapter, in this verse, Prabhupada is talking about how Garbhodakashayi Vishnu entered. Mahaprabhu explains to Sanatana Goswami that when the universe was formed, and the universe was, when it was formed, it had many different layers. Kosha is also known, or a synonym of kosha is layers. And all of these layers, they represent the different elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then you have these subtle elements as well: mind, intelligence, and false ego. And these manifest themselves as the layers. Like an egg has a shell, the universe also has a shell. And the shell is these layers. These 8 layers. Bhumirapo nalovayo kam manor buddhir evacha ahankara itiyame vinapakatirastada. And these layers are, so they're layers that cover the universe. And within the universe you have these disassembled elements. So then the Lord enters as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. But Prabhupada says, and Mahaprabhu explains in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that when Garbhodakashayi Vishnu entered, there was nothing really there. So then from him, his perspiration came the Garbhodaka ocean, which he lied on, or which he got Anantashesh to lie on, and then he lied on Anantashesh. So then from him, all the living entities were present, but they were in their dormant state. So it's very interesting how Prabhupada says all the living entities lay with him. You know, just like how a mother, when she lies down, she has her child with her. Similarly, in the same way, the Lord exists with the living entities in this point, but they lay dormant, sleeping with him. It is not that we follow the Mayavadi philosophy that just as when a green parrot enters into a tree, it merges into the tree. No. The green parrot has merged in the tree in the sense that you cannot see the differentiation between the parrot and the tree. But the individuality of parrot exists and the tree exists. The parrot is not the tree and the tree is not the parrot. They both have different functions, both have different identities. Dharma is different. Similarly, the living entity is present within the Lord, because the living entity is also an energy of the Lord. He is known as the Tatashta Shakti. He is the marginal potency of the Lord. Then the Lord has his internal and external potencies as well. So then, the Lord, before creation, it's mentioned everything exists within the Lord. What is that verse? Maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyaktamutina matstani sarvabhutani cha tesham avastitaha. That actually everything, mayatatam idam sarvam, jagadavaktamutina, that actually everything exists on Krishna. But at the same time, Krishna is not affected by it. Krishna is not in any way transformed by his energy. He remains the Shaktiman, and his energies are the ones that transform. And this is explained in detail in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But then what happens after that? The Lord manifests his energies. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate Swabhavaki Jnana Bala Kriya Cha. That the Lord, when you Natasya Karyam Karanam Cha Vidyate, he has nothing to do. But if he wants to do something, he manifests it to his energies. So his energies do all the work, and he simply enjoys. So when the living entities are explained as lying dormant within the Lord, then it's also understandable that what to speak of the living entities, all these energies are present within him. They remain in their dormant state, or they're active in a different function, that's all. It's mentioned that the internal potency of the Lord is always active with the Lord, whereas the external energies of the Lord is what the Lord needs to constantly manifest and unmanifest. But the Lord doesn't like to manifest the material energy, because for the living entity's enjoyment. He enjoys the material energy the way he enjoys, that's fine. But he doesn't like to enjoy material energy. He doesn't want to manifest the material world for the living entities to enjoy, so that they remain entangled and suffer in material existence. So the Lord then himself manifests all of these different options and opportunities to enjoy. But he himself comes to remind the living entity. He himself sends his devotees to remind the living entities that actually we don't really belong here. We're supposed to go back. And even if that doesn't work, then he's manifested the material world or created in such a way that we will struggle for existence. And in that struggle, then we'll begin to question why we exist here in the first place. And taking shelter of those who are, within knowledge, then we'll be able to elevate our consciousness and go home back to Godhead. So this Virat Purusha comes from into the material universe. From him, the ocean, Garbhodaka ocean, comes from his perspiration. And then it's mentioned that from him comes the lotus flower from within his navel, his abdomen. And the stem of the lotus flower, the 14 planetary systems exist, but they're still unmanifest because they're waiting for the Adikavi, Lord Brahma, Aja. They're waiting for Brahma to come and start assembling. As mentioned before, that it's known as the Visarga, the secondary creation. The Lord Brahma is known as the architect of the universe, or as the engineer. He's not known as the creator. So he plays with what he has by the Lord's instructions and the mercy and the intelligence the Lord gives. Then he's able to manifest the 14 planetary systems. Those 14 planetary systems within that stem of the lotus, that is known as the Virat Purusha. Okay, so then once the Lord entered and filled the universe with water, he lied down there. And Prabhupada says that whatever's manifest to us or visible to us, that's just simply half of the universe. That's just simply half of the universe. All the planetary systems, the stars, the different planets, the sun, moon, they're all just existing on the half of the universe. But the material scientists have no clue of this whatsoever. Their understanding is that 90% of all of existence is dead or dark matter. There's nothing there. No consciousness, nothing. It's just there. But here we have from authoritative scriptures, authoritative statements from Maitreya Rishi, and later on from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even Kapila Dev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, gives us instructions and this knowledge. That actually half the universe is filled with water, and the other half is filled with the planetary systems, existing within the sky, the element of sky. So, very interesting that you see in the we see later on as Maitreya Rishi explains Visarga, the creation of the universe. Then when the Manus are manifested, after the Vishvarupa manifests these different organs and the demigods figure out what they have to do and how they have to work in conjunction with one another, then Brahma starts creating the bodies for the living entities. And after he creates the different bodies for the living entities, then from him comes all of his sons, from his mind, his from his hands, from his organs, all of his sons come. From his heart, Narad Muni comes. From his mind, the Sanat Kumaras, or the four Kumaras. So, like this, all of his sons come, and then he manifests the bodies so that the living entities, they wake up by the Hiranmaya or Garbhodakashaya Vishnu's order. They wake up from their dormant state. After 1,000 celestial years, they finally wake up, and then they enter into the different bodies of the material universe. And it's mentioned there that Lord Brahma creates Manu. And in Swayambhuv Manu's Manvantar, or during his age, then it's mentioned that at one particular point in time, when Lord Brahma had created Jambudvip, when Manu had gone, Brahma was asking all of his sons, you propagate, you become Prajapati, like this. And then he came into the tussle with his 4 sons, the 4 Kumaras. Then after that it's mentioned that Swayambhuv Manu then approached the Lord Brahma, and he performed so much austerities and prayed to Brahma, telling Lord Brahma that I am your son, and I'm willing to take up this role as a Prajapati, as the propagator or progenitor of mankind. And Lord Brahma, being very pleased with him, instructs him on how to do so. But then when Swayambhuv Manu comes to see where he's supposed to start his activities, it's not there. Jambudvip is not there. It's fallen into the ocean, the Garbhodaka ocean. And it's mentioned it's fallen into such a dirty place at the bottom of the universe. Dirty in the sense that from our understanding, within water there's dirt. But this Garbhodaka ocean is from the perspiration of the Lord. It's a spiritual nature. Anyway, so then that's what Lord Brahma then meditates, and from his nostril comes Varahadev. So the Lord manifests a form to be able to enjoy the pastimes of going to a so-called dirty place to pick up Jambudvip or Bhumi Devi. Right? So in that sense, that's how the living entities come into sort of their awakened stage. Their stage from a dormant stage to an awakened stage to perform activities within material universe. Now, it's a very interesting sort of dynamics or mechanics there, that when Lord Brahma goes to sleep, then the whole universe, the Virat Purusha or the Virat Rupa, then becomes dismantled. Everything becomes dismantled, except for the planetary systems above. No, rather, yeah, when Brahma goes to sleep, it becomes dismantled. And so the living entities then go into Vishnu and lie dormant there until Brahma then awakens again. And then again they come into the universe. But when they go to sleep within Vishnu, within Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, they forget what they're doing, what needs to be done, and they forget their desires. To be able to even enjoy, it's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that Garbhodakashaya Vishnu has to remind them when they come out, when they wake up again, he enters as Kshirakashaya Vishnu within every living entity's heart, and he then reminds the living entity that this is what you desired previously, and this is what you'll get. So therefore act in this way, and this is what to be able to satisfy such and such desire. So you can see throughout the whole existence or manifestation of the material universe, the Lord's hand is there everywhere. And you can see that whenever the Lord's hand is not there, everything is a disarray. Everything just doesn't work. The demigods just previously prayed, it just didn't work. The Lord manifested all of these energies and potencies. What? The Lord doesn't understand that when He doesn't manifest these individual 23 elements, that they're not going to be able to combine together and work. He knows that they're not going to happen. But just to show, just to teach us that without Him, it wouldn't work. So therefore the demigods pray to the Lord, and then the Lord enters again with Kali. And then again He expands Himself, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. And then again He acts through His plenary expansions to remind the living entities to perform these material activities. Again He sanctions them, Upadrishta Anumanta Cha, Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara, as the Paramatma within the heart, Antaryami. And He gives them the instructions, you do this, you do that, you do this, enjoy in this way, that way. This is I sanction, this is not authorized, you get this reaction is in its parabdha state, it's unmanifest, everything is under Krishna's control. Everything is being managed by Krishna. Not directly by Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan, but at least through His plenary portions or through His representatives, material nature. Everything is being maintained or controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it then leaves a strong impression within our minds. Nothing can happen without the will of the Lord. You see, our whole education, at least in the Western culture, in the Western part of this world, that we are taught in such a way that by the time we exit education, so-called school, all of these ideologies are subtly imprinted within our mind. And whether we realize it or not, we still carry it with us. Like, for example, many people say rest in peace. When a person passes away, they say rest in peace. But the whole idea of resting in peace indicates that the living entity no longer continues in life. That's it, finished. Body is done, it's done, finished. Another example is when people talk about how the universe is created, why people should perform particular activities. Everything is, our whole consciousness has been infiltrated by this impersonal philosophy, impersonal understanding of existence, of life. And we should never take this lightly. We should always understand when Prabhupada hits heavily on Mayavadis, Prabhupada's not hitting anyone else. He's hitting the Mayavadic tendency within us. Because it's present there within us. And it often pops its head out. And how does it pop its head out? When we perform devotional service for Krishna, that extra step that we can perform for Krishna's service, we don't perform it out of laziness or out of the attitude that, yeah, it's okay, Krishna will understand. Krishna will understand my situation, my sense gratification. So then, it even goes to the extent, Nectar Devotion explains, that when devotees try to perfect their Vaidhi Bhakti, their rules and regulations, they then transcend, or they then become more purified to the extent that their devotional service becomes spontaneous. That yes, they still follow the rules and regulations, but it's out of spontaneity. They're not forced to do it. They do it for Krishna's pleasure. Even on that platform, when they desire to follow in the footsteps or desire to become a particular personality in the association of the Lord, Prabhupada says that there are of two types. One wants to follow the pure devotee of the Lord. They want to become a parent of the Lord. Okay, so they follow Nanda Maharaj's footsteps. They go to Golok or Gokul in this Boma Vrindavan, and they assist the devotee, in this case Nanda Maharaj, in his service of being a father to Krishna. And in that way they also enjoy that rasa of Vatsalya Prem. Prabhupada says there's a second way, or a way that's not recommended, but it's there. And that is, one tries to become the father of the Lord. One tries to take that position. And Prabhupada says that is due to the traces of Mayavad tendency. Because the individual living entity cannot usurp the position of a Nitya Siddha. You cannot be Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj is already there. But if you want to engage in service of Lord Krishna in the Vatsalya Prem, then you serve Nanda Maharaj. You follow in his footsteps. Ragatmika. You follow in the footsteps of the devotee. So you can even see the Mayavadi tendency even gets to that extent. That even though you become so purified that you're qualified to perform Raganuga Bhakti and worship the Lord and have understand your own dharma, your own spiritual swarupa, still the Mayavadi tendency can come and attack you there. So it's a very important thing we should never take lightly. And we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam regularly so that we can purify ourselves of this tendency. So that we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that He is Adi Purush. He is the controller. That Ekala Ishvara Krishna Adasabhritya. Krishna is the Ishwar. Everyone else is the servant. By understanding this, then we can appreciate Krishna's mercy upon us, Krishna's constant guidance from within. And we'll engage in devotional service for Krishna's pleasure. And of course, it's a gradual process. We'll gradually have to get rid of the contamination. And what is the criteria for gradual process? It is our sincere desire. How intensely we desire to perform devotional service and how sincerely perform devotional service, to that degree we'll advance in devotional service. If we choose to take devotional service very lightly, then our progress in devotional service will be stunted, very slow. But if we choose to take devotional service very seriously, practicing the rules and regulations, engaging whatever time we have in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, this Navavidha Bhakti that Prahlad Maharaj has kindly explained or shown to us. If we practice these 9 limbs of devotional service, then if we seriously perform it, then gradually we'll become purified. Cheto Darpanam Arjanam. And then that gradual, that gradual purification won't be so long. It'll be very quick. And Krishna will then manifest His mercy through the devotees. And by serving the devotees again, we get an option for a boost, to go further in devotional service, to become much more advanced very quickly. So it's really up to us how we take it. And as Prabhupada mentions in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that last verse purport, that this whole explanation given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna about the opulence of the Lord is just simply to annihilate or cut that knot of doubt within the heart, so that we can take shelter of Krishna wholeheartedly. So, continuing here, Prabhupada then talks about how this universe, the living entities, are then injected within the womb, and then they are all divided into the universes, and they lie down with the Lord until Lord Brahma is born, and then from Brahma all the other demigods and creatures are born. And it's very interesting, Prabhupada then talks about humanity in different bodily qualities is distributed throughout the various planetary systems. So again, that point that something, there is a person behind it. Someone is dividing the living entities into the universes. Somebody is distributing the living entities into the universes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is doing that. So, He is the Purusha and we are the Prakriti. We are meant to be engaged in His service. Humanity in different bodily qualities is distributed throughout the various planetary systems. Urdam gachanti sattasa, madhya tishtanti rajasa, jaganya gunavrittista ado gacchati tamasa. So according to the modes of the living entities have acquired, Purusha prakritisto hi bhunkte prakriti janguna, kardam guna sangasya, sadasad yoni janmasu. According to the modes of nature we are associated with, that body we will attain. That's what we will be able to use or utilize to satisfy our desires. And again, everything comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then it's very interesting. You can understand the compassion of the Lord, the desire of the Lord to bring us back to Him. That He Himself, like you take this example, that if the lover and the beloved wants to get, the beloved wants to get the lover in a relationship, but the lover decides to go and enjoy with a paramour. So then the beloved what happens? Do you think the beloved comes and assists in such a relationship? It's a very painful situation. But the Lord is Himself coming here, even though we are Bahirmukh Jeev. We are looking away from the Lord. Bahirmukh Jeev, Bhogavanchakare, wanting to enjoy. We have looked away from the Lord. But the living entity is nicely slapping us. Krishna Bahirmukh Jeev, Bhogavanchakare, Nikitasta Maya Thare, Japatiya Dhare. The living entities are constantly being slapped by Maya. But still we are going after her, trying to enjoy her. And the Lord is personally coming with us to facilitate that false enjoyment. Because the Lord wants to, out of His, out of His intense concern for the living entities, He comes and He makes sure, okay, He's doing this, He's doing that, let me see what I can do. Let me wait for that moment, that small amount of devotional service He performs, knowingly or unknowingly, so I can just, bestow upon Him as much mercy as possible that He can hold. So Lord is waiting every single moment, waiting. And when it happens, when a Sankirtan devotee meets some so-called conditioned soul on the street, and they somehow just look at the book, and they may say, this book, I don't want it. But within their mind or consciousness, they think, wow, it looks very nice. Nice color. Or, wow, this guy looks pretty good. Or, I didn't want the book, he didn't give it to me, but he left a really good impression. He seems like a really good guy. Just that contact, hey, who is he? What is he doing? That snowballs that Agyata Sukriti snowballs to such an extent the Lord is able to give His mercy, and the Lord is waiting, right there waiting to give that mercy. So that's the concern of the Lord for all the living entities. So whenever we perform any activities, we should always remember that Krishna, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath is there. Like I remember when I first came to Krishna, when I came to devotional service, I remember when they were talking about devotee association. You're dealing with devotees. Sometimes, you forget you're dealing with a devotee, and all of the anarthas come out. So then, one of the solutions to help a person in associating with other devotees is to always remember, you can understand or imagine or visualize Radha Gopinath is always there with that devotee. When you're associating with a devotee, you can always see behind that devotee Radha Gopinath is there watching. That this is my devotee, how are you associating with him? And a sincere devotee remembering Radha Gopinath will immediately understand, yes, actually I should engage in trying to serve them. With all my faults, with all my desires, with all my shortcomings, I should understand my position is very fallen, but I should still endeavor to serve the Lord. And try and beg the Lord, hope against hope for His mercy, so that I may become purified, even though I'm such a fallen creature. And that mood, if you have, when you see the other devotee and Radha Gopinath's there, then you'll endeavor or engage in activities with that devotee in such a way that you'll always think about Krishna's pleasure, Gopinath's pleasure. But the biggest problem we have is forgetfulness of Krishna. And that's Maya's work, and she's pretty good at doing it. She's expert in making us forget Krishna. Because sometimes, most of the time, when you're chanting, what happens? The mind wanders, right? The mind, like a cow grazing in the field, begins to graze. The senses, the subtle senses then begin to go into different activities within the mind. Thinking of previous activities, future activities, current activities. And that's the time where we can make a choice. Will I continue to enjoy the senses, or will I just hear the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra? In one place my Guru Maharaj says, Prabhupada says that actually that's a super soul. In one sense he's testing. I'm chanting Hare Krishna, how come I'm remembering something from so long ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago? I thought I'd given that up. And it will be something so insignificant, it will come. But when it comes, what's our choice? What's the decision we'll make? Will we entertain it, or will we reject it? Will we take Krishna, or will we, again, flirt with the material energy? And so these small choices that we make in life, that determine our devotional service and progress in devotional service. So therefore, we always chant Hare Krishna. Prabhupada says, if you chant Hare Krishna, how can you forget Krishna? And if you can't forget Krishna, if you don't forget Krishna, then you always make the right choices of pleasing Krishna's senses. And this whole process of bhakti is that we engage in Krishna consciousness, we read Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand the mercy of the Lord, that He engages in His external energy through His plenary expansions just for our sake. Still we doubt Him. So therefore He gives us Srimad Bhagavatam to be able to understand how it works. That it's Him, every step of the way, it's Him who's controlling the whole thing. And it's Him who's not interfering with our free will. And He's waiting for us to choose Him. So that when that moment comes and we turn to Him, even slightly, He'll smother us with mercy. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That inconceivable nature, like we're hearing the last couple of days, the mercy of Sri Navadvip Dham, and how the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's mentioned during the point where King Prataparudra, during the Ratha Yatra, when King Prataparudra went and massaged Mahaprabhu's lotus feet, because Mahaprabhu did not want to see the king. Mahaprabhu rejected the king. Although internally he understood that the king was a pure devotee, one of his associates, he wanted to show the world that Shukla Vashtimasi Bindu Ye Se Na Lukhai Sanyasera Alpa Chidra Sarva Lokagai. That when you see a small black dot in a Shukla Vashtre, that's in a white cloth, when you see a black dot there, it's very, very prominent. Similarly, Sanyasera Alpa Chidra, if there's a small fault on a sannyasi, Sarva Lokagai, everyone will speak about it. So Mahaprabhu was very careful. I took sannyas for the main purpose that the conditioned souls will respect me. And with that respect, I can preach Krishna consciousness to them, and they'll take up devotional service. But if I make one small wrong move, and my whole sannyas ashram is shaky, then that whole endeavor, the whole thing I gave up, the whole pastimes in Navadvip that I gave up so I can save the living entities, that will become shaky. So the Lord understands, the Lord knows. So externally He manifested this very stubborn mentality of not wanting to see the king. So then anyway, when Mahaprabhu danced in Ratha Yatra, he took rest in this garden, the Jagannath Vallabha garden. And there, King Prataparudra was then encouraged by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to go there and massage Mahaprabhu's feet and recite the Gopi Geet. When he started, and being in a very simple cloth, he went and massaged Mahaprabhu's feet. And earlier in the Ratha Yatra pastime, he had personally come, the king, in his grandeur. He came and started performing menial service for Lord Jagannath, like sweeping and pulling the rope for the Lord's chariot. And Mahaprabhu noted this. And when Mahaprabhu was dancing also, when Mahaprabhu lost himself, the devotees who were meant to, guide Mahaprabhu, they also went into ecstasy. They let themselves go. Advaita Acharya went in one direction, Nityananda Prabhu went into ecstasy in another direction. So when Mahaprabhu jumped up and he came down to the ground, he fell at Maharaj Prataparudra's feet. And Maharaj Prataparudra very respectfully picked up Mahaprabhu. And when Mahaprabhu came to consciousness, then he, what has happened? Why are you touching me? I will become contaminated like this. And Mahaprabhu immediately went back into the kirtan. And Mahaprabhu chastised, he spoke very harsh words to the king. And the king was shocked. But then Maharaj Prataparudra was advised by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that actually this is the blessing of the Lord. Because you can see the Lord arranged the situation that his associates weren't there, so that Maharaj Prataparudra could perform more service to Mahaprabhu. Anyway, that all led to the point when he massaged Mahaprabhu's feet and recited Gopi Geet. Mahaprabhu, out of ecstasy, embraced him because he was helping him remember Lord Krishna. And when he embraced him, he said, I do not know who you are, but I am indebted to you. And Prabhupada writes that this is the inconceivable mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is why Rupa Goswami calls him Mahavadanyaya. Because Mahaprabhu doesn't even see the person before him, but he's willing to give all the mercy possible upon him. He didn't even qualify Maharaj Prataparudra. He just embraced him and said, I'm indebted to you. And Maharaj Prataparudra then manifested the ecstasy of love of God and all the different manifestations of the body. So this is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Srimad Bhagavatam is bringing that out. That at every stage of creation of material universe, Krishna is there. Krishna makes it happen. Even though Krishna doesn't want it to happen, Krishna is making it happen. And Krishna is there facilitating the desires of the living entity. But He's waiting to give the ultimate mercy of love of God, love of Himself. So the living entities will come back to Him. And He's giving it in these pages of Srimad Bhagavatam to us. So when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, when we hear about the creation of the universal form, we'll feel switched off. But we should endeavor to hear with attention, at least, and try to understand what's happening, so that we can understand Krishna's mercy and reciprocate with Him. Because by endeavoring to hear about this, even though we don't want to, or we can't understand, or there is some sort of inhibition preventing us from understanding this, if we endeavor in some way, make that one step towards Krishna, Krishna will take 10 steps to us. Krishna is very kind. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is most kind. And the devotees are very kind. So they'll bestow upon us devotional service and love of Godhead very easily if we just simply endeavor to understand this. So today's verse talked about the Lord entering into the universe as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and the living entities were laying dormant within Him. And now the Lord will then manifest His Virat Rupa, so that then the rest of creation can